God's forgiveness and our justification, that declaration that we are innocent because of the work of Jesus, that is a one-time action. You put your faith in Jesus, you're baptized, you are fully and completely forgiven. And yet that process of changing and growing and repenting, sometimes called sanctification, sometimes that's a lifelong process. And that's what we see here with the brothers, especially Judah. Remember back in Genesis chapter 38, where Judah is quite ungodly. Not only does he marry pagan women, but then he does not treat Tamar with the kind of care and respect that she deserves. And he even falls into sexual immorality. And then all sorts of things get tangled up, and we don't need to rehash all that. But he's shown in a bad light, also participate in selling his brother into slavery. And yet now in Genesis 43, we see him standing up for sacrificing himself, saying to his father, if I don't bring Benjamin back, you can take my life. So he's being sacrificial and selfless, not selfish. And then when they get to Egypt and Joseph replays their childhood experience really beautifully. Actually, it's amazing. He sets all of them up from oldest to youngest, and Joseph gives the double portion to the youngest one, Benjamin, almost like saying, hey, remember this when we were younger, and the youngest son, Joseph, or there was one favored child, Joseph, who got that Technicolor dream coat, and you saw one son being lifted up, and you had envy and jealousy. Well, this is happening again. Benjamin is getting the double portion of the food at this meal that Joseph is setting, and he wants to see if they've changed, wants to see if they're going to be envious again and selfish again. And so then he sends them away, but he puts their money back in their sacks, and he puts his cup in the sack of Benjamin. And he says, anyone who's stolen my cup, they're going to be thrown into prison, and that would be Benjamin. But then Judah steps in the last scene here in 44, and he says, take my life. Judah again almost becomes like a Christ-like figure here. He steps in for his brother. He tells Joseph, who he doesn't know is Joseph yet, to take my life. So this is that lifelong process of changing, growing, maturing, learning to trust, learning to repent, learning to love. And that's the process that we're all on. And we see Judah completing that process. We see also the change and maturity in Joseph, because in chapter 45, he reveals himself, and he's no longer this tattletale, immature, daddy's little favorite boy that we met back in Genesis 37. Now he has all the power and authority in the world, and he could use his power and authority to get vengeance, but now he's mature, and he's at peace, and he believes in God's providence, God's care of the world. He says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, for the saving of many lives, that God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. He has a healthy view of his past. He has a healthy view that God is the one who brings about justice and righteousness, and God's the one who's ultimately in control, that God's hand has been involved in all of this tragedy, guiding it, not necessarily causing it, but guiding it for their eternal good. So, where are you at in your process of transformation? Maybe when you were younger, you can see selfishness, self-righteousness. Maybe you can see that in you right now. Pray that God would use trials and testing and experience to lead you to be a more sacrificial, selfless, and caring person like we see in the family of Joseph. All right, God bless you. Keep reading. Don't give up.